بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين صلوات. صل على محمد وآل محمد واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم وقوله الحق. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states in the Holy Quran, and what he says is the truth, in the chapter of Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verses 155 to 157. He says, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ راجعون أولئك عليهم صلوات من ربهم ورحمة وأولئك هم المهتدون. In these three verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about trials and tribulations, and He says, surely we will try you and test you with بشيء من الخوف والجوع, with a little bit of fear and a little bit of hunger. ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات, and deficiency in your wealth, and deficiency in your health, and deficiency in the fruits of your labor. But then He says, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. However, give glad tidings, good news to those who are patient through these trials and tribulations. Who are these who are patient? He says, الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ راجعون. Those are the ones who, when they are hit by calamity or tragedy or trial or tribulation, what do they say? They say, surely we are from Allah, and to He we shall return. So okay, if I do that, what do I get? Allah continues. He says, أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَيْهِمْ صَلَوَاتٌ مِّن رَبِّهِمْ وَرَحْمَةٌ. Those people who do this, upon them Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will praise them, and He will bestow upon them His mercy, and He will give them a very important title. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُهْتَدُونَ. And those are the ones who are rightfully guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. صدق الله العلي العظيم. أمنا بالله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Let's start first by doing this dua together that I like to do at the beginning of every lecture, inshallah, so that maybe this can become part of our life when we want to deal with things, trials and tribulations and otherwise. رَبِّ اشْرَحْ لِي صَدْرِي. Say it after me. رَبِّ اشْرَحْ لِي صَدْرِي. Oh Allah, open up my heart and my mind to receive the information I'm about to learn. وَيَسِّرْ لِي أَمْرِي. And ease my affairs. وَاحْلُلْ عُقْدَةً مِّن لِسَانِي. And untie the knots in my tongue. يَفْقَهُ قَوْلِي. So that they may understand what I'm about to say. رَبِّ أَرِنِي الْحَقَّ حَقًّا. Allah, let me see the truth as the truth. فَأَتَّبِعَهُ. So that I may follow it. وَالْبَاطِلَ بَاطِلًا. And falsehood as falsehood, so that I may avoid it. فَأَجْتَنِبَهُ. وَلَا تَجْعَلْهُ مُتَشَابِهًا عَلَيَّ. And don't let there be a confusion between truth and falsehood. فَأَتَّبِعْ هَوَايَ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. Lest I follow my whims without even realizing it. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Our lecture today is about trials and tribulations. And it's just as well that it is, because where we are in our lecture series now is where we say, okay, well, why, if God is so great and God is unlimited and God is all perfect, right? Why do we have to go through all these trials and tribulations in our lives? Why is there hunger in this world, right? Why is there famine? Why are there people who have congenital disorders, right? Birth defects. Why do people get cancer, right? Why do people die? Why are there earthquakes? Why are there natural disasters? And I told you that when we were doing the proof of organization, Burhan al-Nuzum, where we basically said that proof has two parts, right? The first part, we observed the world around us. We looked at 5 examples: an orange when you cut it in half, an onion when you cut it in half, onion cells under a microscope, the sunrise, the sunset, the solar system. We said all these things are organized, so we said the world is organized. At that point, I said someone's going to come to you and say to you, yeah, but what about earthquakes, right? What about natural disasters? What about wars and birth defects? And I told you what we would say to somebody like that is, I promise you we're going to get to that, but can we agree on these examples at the very least, right? So now we're at that point right now. Of course, in that proof, that was the first part. We determined the world is organized, and then in the second part, we looked at organized things, and we asked, who organizes your room, who organizes your desk, who organizes at school, your doctor's office, and your home? And we all agreed somebody organizes them. So we said, okay, so everything organized has an organizer. We agreed on that. And then we said, okay, let's put the two together, part 1 and part 2. The world is organized. Everything organized has an organizer. Therefore, the conclusion is that the world, since it's part of everything, then that means it has an organizer, creator of its organization. We then asked, we said, okay, this organizer, this creator of this world's organization, right? What are his characteristics, his most important characteristic? And then what, is there more than one creator? Because, some things that are organized require more than one organizer, right? And then finally we said, what does that mean to me, right? And then very simply we were able to answer those questions through the proof of the unlimited creator. And quickly, for Muhammad Ali, who just came, and Zulay, who is joining us today, Brother Murtada, inshallah, we do a quick review, right? This is what we do in the Hawza before we start our classes. We always do a review before, inshallah. I'm bringing the Hawza style studies to you, inshallah, okay? From the holy city of Najaf. So we said, how do we answer these questions? With the proof of the unlimited creator. And the short version of it is a creator is greater than what they create. Agreed? If you agree, say I agree. Meaning, a cook is not just a cook, right? He's more than a cook. Hajji here, he does real estate, he buys and sells cars, He likes cooking, he was telling me today, right? He enjoys it, it relaxes him, right? It doesn't define who he is, he's more than that, right? Your parents, they brought you to this world, but they're not just your parents, right? They have other interests, right? There are other parts to their character and their personality. So they're greater than just being your parents. An engineer, the same thing. He's greater than the designs that he makes. He's someone's mom, or she is someone's mom, or he's someone's dad, right? And so on. Someone's son, someone's daughter. So that tells us then, these are very simple, of course, examples, that a creator is greater than what they create. Agreed so far? Muhammad Ali agreed? Good. So if I apply this concept that a creator is greater than what they create to the creator of all of limitation, okay? And I say, okay, so a creator is greater than what they create. So the creator of all of limitation must be greater than limitation. And therefore, is he limited or unlimited? He's unlimited, okay? So when we said unlimited means he doesn't have a beginning, doesn't have an end, because those are limits. Therefore, he always existed, will always exist. That means he's everywhere. He doesn't need eyes with which to see or ears with which to hear, because these limit him, right? They would limit him. And he is unlimited, right? We also said he doesn't have any flaws, because flaws are limitations, right? Ahsan. So that means he's flawless. And we said, what's another word for flawless? Perfect. Ahsantum, right? So he's all perfect. So that means he knows all things. He doesn't mince words. He doesn't contradict himself. He doesn't make any mistakes, right? It also means he's all wise. And it also means he's all just, because he's all perfect. He will not oppress us, right? Not even an atom's worth, not even a quark's worth. Right? We said also he's all purposeful, because to do something without a purpose is a deficiency. Agreed? Right? Therefore, he's all purposeful, which means I have a purpose. He created me for a purpose. We are here for a purpose. Everything around me has a purpose. Right? Also, we determined that since the all-perfect chose for Zulay, right? Zalu, Muhammad Ali, Sajjad, I know your name, don't worry, Abu al-Fadl, Brother Murtala, the Hajjaj, right? Abu Shahab, that he chose for us to exist, for these little boys and all of their parents to exist, for the plants and for nature, for the animals, for the insects, no matter how gross they may seem. Allah created everything for a purpose and with a purpose. And since He's the one, the all-perfect, who chose for these things to exist, right? Then that means that they have an intrinsic, inborn value. An intrinsic, inborn worth. So my self-worth comes from whom? From, the Mr. Olympia competitions when I go and I train and I, show my muscles? From my gym buddies when they see how much I can press? From my boss at work? From the president of my country? Right? Who do I get my self-worth from? The cool kids in school? Who? From my Creator. Because He's given me an intrinsic value and worth, an inborn worth. Each of us is born with a very important value, a value that is given to us from whom? From our Creator. So, the other important paradigm shifting piece of information that we gained in the last 3 lectures was the fact that since God is unlimited, that means He's everywhere. That means, am I ever alone? Muhammad Ali, are you ever alone if God is everywhere? You're never alone. God is always with you, right? Then why do I feel alone sometimes? Because I haven't connected with Allah yet. Once I realize He's unlimited and I connect with Him, I'll never be alone, Nick. Right? I'll never depend on other people to bring me happiness, because I know true happiness lies with what? With pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and having that connection and relationship with my Creator. Right? Today I might work out and have big muscles, right? But we were talking today when we were breaking our fast, right? Working out, you're going to lose muscle mass, okay? Which means you're limited, right? You grow older, next thing you know, your muscles are growing. You end up, instead of a six-pack, you end up with a one-pack, right? Right? Okay? You're like, oh, gone are the days, because you're limited, right? Okay? If you connect your goals and you connect yourself with only things that are limited, then will you get limited or unlimited results? Limited results. But if you connect yourself with the Creator, the unlimited, right? You ask Him for help. You connect with Him when you want to achieve things. When you want to become strong, you say, oh Allah, I'm doing this so that I can please You, so that I can be a strong believer in physical body and stature, as well as in my spirituality, so that I dedicate that strength to helping others, right? Okay? For Your sake, for no one else's. So will Allah give me unlimited results or no? He will, right? When I want to study, right? I might say, oh, I want to study because I want to get a good job and I want to make a good living, right? So you might get into cybersecurity or AI or, become a doctor or become a lawyer or whatever else. If you connect yourself only to the materialistic, limited world, then you can only expect limited results, right? But if you say, I'm going to become a lawyer because I want to help people for the sake of Allah, there's nothing wrong with getting money. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that even if you get the money, you have to connect yourself to the Creator. Because if you connect yourself to the unlimited, then He will give you unlimited success in whatever you choose to do in your life. But if you just connect yourself to the materialistic gains and wants, then guess what? Once you hit that peak, right? We mentioned Michael Phelps the other day, right? The Olympic swimmer, who when he got all those gold medals and hit the records in every single category, right? After that point, he went downhill. He ended up falling into drug addiction and so on, lost all of his sponsorships, okay? So why? Because he connected himself with a limited goal, a gold piece of metal, that's it, right? But if he had connected his goals with Allah, then he would have never fallen off the top of that peak. He would have kept on rising and rising beyond and ascending towards greater heights, right? So if I'm able to do that and connect with my Creator, then my success rate is going to be over 100%, right? Okay? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now yesterday, I told you, I promised you that we would talk about trials and tribulations, and yesterday we talked about several things. One of the things we talked about was, predestination versus free will. Are we predestined or is there free will? And Abu Fadl, if you remember, we said that there are things that are predestined, pre-written out of God's benevolence, right? And we said benevolence means lutf, which means He does things for us without us knowing that we even need those things, right? For example, He gives us gravity, right? He creates the natural laws of nature, right? The physical laws, so that the planets all orbit around the solar system. The universe operates the way it does, just so that we can live on this earth, right? And breathe and eat and drink, and right? That if there was a slight discrepancy, just the slightest less than 0.00000001 of a difference in any of those laws, that everything would come to an end. Right? Subhanallah. Okay? So, we said, there are things that are predestined, they have to be that way. How my liver works, how many times I blink, how many times my heart beats, right? How my nervous system works, how I gain information, right? This is all predestined, right? But then there are things such as, when I wake up in the morning, do I hit the snooze button and go back to sleep? Or do I get up and go to school or go to work, right? That's a choice that I make. And we said, being forced to do something is bad, right? Agreed? Right? And having choice is good, right? Since Allah is all good, then He will only do what is good. So He's not going to force me to do anything. Instead, He's going to give me choice. Agreed? If you agree, say I agree, right? And that means then that He'll even give me the choice of whether I choose him or not. That's how fair he is. That's what it means to be all just, right? So then we said, okay, what if somebody asks us, but what about, like, if you say God is everywhere, God knows all things, then would his knowledge contradict, the results of my choices or my choices? Is there any purpose then to life if God knows everything? We said no. God is like that programmer of, what was the Call of Duty for you, right? That's the game you like to play. And what's the game you like to play? Fortnite, right? Okay. Of course, personally, I don't advocate gaming, but I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you I haven't played Call of Duty or Forza. Okay, all right, okay. But a programmer programs a game in a certain way. He gives you a set of choices, and this is like a mini world that he's created for you, right? And we said that as you get better, in every level, it takes a while. It takes time, right? Okay. You didn't get to level 5 in Fortnite just by skipping from the beginning, right? You had to literally practice over and over and over, make mistakes until you were able to beat that level, make the right choices. Life is the same, right? At each level, we have to make certain choices. We have certain challenges in our life, right? Now, for example, when I'm a baby, my biggest worry when I'm first born is where I get my milk from, right? Okay, I don't even know that my diaper is dirty. I need my parents to figure that out for me and clean me up, right? But then as I grow older, I start to turn, then I start to crawl, then I might fall on my face a few times, scrape a few, knees and elbows and hit my eye somewhere, get a scar somewhere. I first start walking, I fall, and I get back up. You ever look at a baby, right? They fall, they get back up. They fall, they get back up. They fall, they get back up, right? Until they gain the power and the strength to be able to beat that level, that challenge, right? They move from level 0 to level 1 to level 2 to level 3 to level 4 until we get to the age that we're at. And every age we become equipped for that age. Why? Because we went through the year before and the challenges and the trials and tribulations that we went through at that point. I'm a better, stronger person now because of what I went through before. Does that make sense? If it makes sense, say it makes sense, right? So that brings us, obviously, to answering the question, is there then a problem with God knowing all of the possible decisions that we could make? Does that contradict the fact that we have choice? No, it doesn't, because he doesn't control our choice. Got it? The fact that he knows the entire system means he knows every single choice we could possibly make, right? And he may even know he knows where we may sway to, right? At this point in our lives, okay? And he gives us the patience that's needed for us to make the mistakes or to catch ourselves before we fall into a mistake. But that doesn't negate the power of our choice, you see? Right? Because he doesn't control us. Yes, if he controlled our choices, if he said, okay, you're born good, you're born bad, yeah, there would be no point in life. What's the point, right? But in the system of life, okay, it's exactly like when you're playing that game, right? Where you have levels to surpass and you have the choice. And just like the programmer doesn't control your choice, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't control your choice either. Okay? So now let's talk about trials and tribulations. Why? Why do there have to be trials and tribulations? Why do we have to go through the pain and the suffering and all this sort of stuff, right? So let's look first at trials and tribulations and understand what they are. Let's define them, okay? Trials and tribulations are of two types. They either come from God himself, right? Like earthquakes, natural disasters, tsunamis, right? Tornadoes, hurricanes, right? Or they come from human choice. Now, human choice is of two types. My own choices or the choices of those around me. Agreed? Right? Good. So, when we look at God, the unlimited, all-perfect creator, when he tries me and puts a challenge in front of me, we know that we proved that our purpose in life, first and foremost, is to please God. Why? Because we need to thank him, for bringing us to this world, right? For allowing us to exist in his greatness, right? To know him. That's the greatest honor anyone could ever have, right? And we said that just like we owe our parents for bringing us to this world, educating us, raising us, like you said yesterday, right? Feeding us, teaching us how to talk, how to walk, right, Nick? Okay? That we feel a sense of obligation towards our parents, right? We feel obligated to make them happy.
So we try to be obedient. We go out of our way to do good things. Like I saw you, for example, giving up your chair for your dad, right? Why would you do that? Why? Because you know he has a great right upon you, right? Okay? This is a testament, of course, is great, mashallah, tarbiyah of you, right? Now he raised you well. So is Allah not more worthy? The most worthy. The one who has the greatest priority upon me and the greatest right upon me that I should please him. He gave me my parents and their parents, the very breath with which I breathe and my very existence. So then I should seek to please him first and foremost. So now when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives me a trial and tribulation, what is he really doing? He's saying, well, okay, so you say you believe in me. You say that you're grateful. But if I put a few trials and tribulations in your life, will you still be thankful? See? Because we know trials and tribulations that come from Allah, from God himself, we know that God would not burden us with more than we can handle. Agreed? Because that would be unjust, and we proved that he's unlimited, therefore he's all just. Right? Which means that every trial that I get from Allah in this system, I can handle, Brother Murtala, whatever it may be. Whether it's the passing of my father, a loved one, right? Or the passing of my mother, right? Or, the loss of a child, God forbid, inshallah, nobody loses a child here, right? So, but I can handle it, right? Why? Because this came from Allah. Let me give you an example. Let's take an earthquake, for example, okay? And I want you to imagine a pressure cooker for a second, okay? Everybody knows what a pressure cooker is, yeah? So, in a pressure cooker, if you imagine the pressure cooker, you put water in it, you put the spices, you put the meat, you put maybe rice, you put some vegetables, right? And then you seal it and you turn the burner on, okay? Now you have a heat source. The heat source is causing the water to boil, right? The pressure is increasing the more the heat source goes, right? More pressure, more pressure, more pressure. Steam, right? More pressure. At the top of the pressure cooker, there's a little cap. If you lift it a little, it starts to whistle. What does it whistle out? Steam from the inside of the pot, right? What does that do? Exactly, it relieves the pressure that's inside the cooker. If I don't relieve that pressure, what happens to that pressure cooker? What does it turn into? An explosive device, yeah. It blows up, exactly. Now imagine the earth and its core. The core is a heat source. Molten lava, right? Bubbling, bubbling, bubbling. The earth's tectonic plates, the different layers of the earth, start shuffling and moving and moving. The earth's outer crust, okay, now is like the outside of that pot, okay? If it doesn't have a point of pressure relief, what will happen to the earth? It will explode completely. All of the earth in its entirety. But luckily, right, out of God's benevolence, what did he put on this earth? Fault lines, volcanoes, right? Fault lines, so that pressure can be relieved. Now, sometimes there are people who are living on these fault lines. And so you might end up with, if they're close to the water, you might end up with earthquakes underwater causing tsunamis. Or it might be earthquakes like what we saw in Quetta or in Iran, for example, or in California, right? And, people's homes get torn apart and the earth gets torn apart, right? And people die or get injured. Or like we saw in Turkey, a couple of years back, okay? So, is it fair that all these people would lose their lives senselessly and be injured? Is it senseless is the question. Because if this is part of the system, the organized system that God created, right? And this is a fault line that is supposed to relieve pressure, then is this fault line not a form of God's mercy so that he saves the majority of the people in the world or no? Right? But those who are in those areas, who have chosen to live there, right? Those people who are there, those who die, if they died because of the earthquake, then they died because of what? Because of a divine decision, right? Meaning it was Allah that decided that this is the time for this earthquake to occur here, right? In order for the rest of the world not to suffer, right? So who is the one who has the right to give life and to take life? The Creator, right? The one who created us is the one who has the right to give us life, and he also has the right to take our lives. So now when Allah takes someone's life through an earthquake or through a natural disaster or through sickness, right? Like cancer or something else like that, right? Is that the best decision or no? Of course it is, because who made the decision? The all-just creator. Got it? The all-perfect. Now I might not understand. I might not be ready to lose that person, but it doesn't mean that it's not the right time, because the creator is the all-knowing. He knows better than me. I'm limited, right, in knowing where the benefits may lie, right? But I know that since he's the one that chose for that person to die that way and at that time, then it is the best thing for them. You see? If you see, say khosh. Okay, good. صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. So now we understand that God will not burden us with more than we can handle, right? Which means if a person dies in such a natural disaster or by a sickness, right, then it is by the will of God that this happened, okay? And it is fair, and it was that person's time to leave this world. Nobody stays here forever, right? Okay? So that means Allah chose. But what about those who are injured? What about those who are hurt during that process? Well, this is their struggle. This is the time for them to show Allah their gratitude. Will they be patient and see beyond the limited struggle that they're going through, right? Only to become stronger after? Or will they not see? You know, will they just say, why me? Why me? Why me? Which means they're saying, why did you do this to me? God, you know nothing and I know better than you. Does that make sense? But they don't realize they're saying this, by the way, because they don't really know God. Because if they really knew God, that He is unlimited and that He is all just and all fair, then they wouldn't say that. They would say, Alhamdulillah. All gratitude is to Allah. Allah has customized and placed this challenge in my life, and He will not burden me with more than I can handle. And He knows that I will be stronger after it. I must show Him my gratitude and show Him my tolerance and my resilience and my grit, right? Through this challenge. Because when I come out the other side, I will be stronger. Think about all those who died from corona and all those who survived. Your body, it naturally produces antibodies to protect itself from viruses and foreign invaders that come into your body. The system is set up to show you what? To show you that no, if a foreign body comes that challenges you, then you are to create, means by which to protect yourself from it, right? And move beyond it. And when you move beyond it, you will be immunized, right? Just like your body immunizes itself with antibodies. So the next time a similar virus comes, it's not a problem. Your body's got it, right? Now it's just a matter of a new virus coming along, and your body will go through the same process and you will come out stronger with a greater, stronger immune system. Got it, Nick? Okay? Right. Okay, so let me give you another simple example and then I'll move on to people's choices. I was telling the Hajji that I think it was in 1987 or 86 that I was in Romania. Okay, listen to this, Nick. I was in Romania. Okay, and I was in the city of, I believe, Neptune at the time, and we're in a high-rise hotel, 20 floors. Okay, we were literally on the top floor, the 20th floor, and there was an earthquake. There hadn't been an earthquake in Romania for 20 years. Okay. So I was very young. My sister and I and my youngest brother were in one room and my parents were in another room. And, when the earthquake happened, the building was literally swaying back and forth. So those who know engineering, they know that high-rises are affected by wind resistance and they're designed to actually withstand the wind. So I could literally feel the building swaying back and forth and back and forth. And my father, in order to get us, he actually had to climb to our balcony to make sure that he wakes up my sister because I couldn't wake her up. And then he ended up taking us out. And we all went down to the basement, took the stairs and so on. Today, I know that I can even handle an earthquake. Am I a stronger person or no? When I was younger, I went through the Gulf War in 1990. Saddam invaded Iraq. We went through this whole adventure and journey until we went to safety. We got to safety, right? Today, because I went through that when I was younger, like many Iraqis, many Afghanis, many, right, Pakistanis, many people from different cultures go through. I went through a war. When I came back, I said, listen, whatever God gives me is great. You start to have an appreciation for everything that God has given you when you go through trials and tribulations, when you go through such changes, you feel stronger. You feel like you can handle anything, right, Brother Sajjan? Alhamdulillah, right? Okay, so then trials and tribulations from Allah. Now, what about trials and tribulations from human choice? So trials and tribulations from human choice can either be from my choices or from other people's choices. So let me ask you, if I choose to smoke, and of course say no to smoking is bad for you, okay? But if I choose to smoke, right, and I end up with lung cancer, whose fault is that? Is that God's fault? Or is it my fault? It's my fault, right? Despite the fact that I made a choice that ended up poisoning God's perfect system, my lungs, okay? And I am now bearing the consequences of those bad choices, right? God still gives me an opportunity through this to realize that I made the wrong decision and to repent and to try to fix things as much as possible. For example, if a person gets cancer, what ends up happening with them? They end up wanting to make sure that they're good with everyone. They end up making sure they make up whatever prayers they had to make up, right? They end up being extra kind and realizing the error of their ways and repenting to Allah and asking for forgiveness, right? So even through sickness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes them realize how lowly they are and how much they are in need of the Creator, right? And how they need to fix themselves and be better people. Intrinsically, this ends up happening to every human being that there is. You see? Okay? So then, because it's through that system, you might say, yeah, but why such a bad consequence? We say, well, there have to be consequences to good actions and consequences to bad actions, right? Otherwise, the system wouldn't be fair. Otherwise, God would not be fair, right? If, let's say, a killer was to go to heaven, and a person who spent his life serving the community and being a kind person and a good person, he also goes to heaven, then what's the point, right? Life would be purposeless, right? But if the person who deserves to go to heaven, the righteous person, goes, and the person who is bad is punished, then that's the fair thing and the just thing to happen. Now, sometimes, of course, certain punishments, a person does, bad deeds but repents, does good deeds, repents. When he does bad deeds, Allah will, because He's all fair, He will, the consequences and the punishment will be equal to what he does. And Allah will give him the ability to repent. If he repents and he says, and we'll see this in the Quran when we get to it, inshallah, that if a person just says, Tubtu ilallah, oh Allah, I regret what I did, and I seek repentance from you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will absolve him of all of his sins. I mean, look at this, the system of this month of Ramadan. This holy month of Ramadan, right? In which our breath is an exaltation of Allah, tasbih. And our sleep is ibadah. Therefore, our breath becomes a form of ibadah. Right? Okay? A form of worship. Right? Think about it. 22,000 breaths that we take. Take your phones out. We take 22,000 breaths a day. Right? Bring out the calculator. 22,000 breaths a day. Right? Okay? If we say, if our breath is subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, Allahu akbar, let's say it's one hasana per each one. Okay? Right? So 4 times 22,000. That's how many rewards? 88,000. Right? Now, al-hasana bi-ashrati amthaliha, God says in the Holy Quran, that a good deed is equivalent to 10 rewards. So now multiply that by 10. 880,000 rewards. Now that's just for one day. Multiply that by 30 days. What's the number? 26,400,000 rewards, hasanat, that we get in this month just from breathing. How could we leave this month with a single sin? Look at how merciful Allah is. SubhanAllah. Does that humble you or no? It does, right? Does that make you think of how generous Allah, our Creator, is or no? Huh? Yeah. So, okay. So then I understand then that when it comes to my own choices and trials and tribulations, right? Even if I make the bad choice, I understand there are consequences. I have no one to blame but myself. But can I handle the burden of the consequences? Yes, I can. Why? Because God does not burden me with more than I can handle in His system. Okay? Or otherwise. Because He's all just. Agreed? If you agree, say I agree. Next, what about other people's choices? We see Netanyahu making all these choices, bombing, killing, maiming, right? Right? It's not fair, we say. All these innocent are dying because of this guy making these bad decisions, him and the goons around him, right? Say, hang on. Since it's within the system, and this is part of choice, Because the very nature of being in a system where we have choice and choice is good is that I may make good choices and you may make good choices, but others may make bad choices. And those bad choices may affect you and may affect me, right? For example, somebody has a bad mood, right? And instead of smiling in your face, right? He's mkashir. He's, frowning in your face. That spoils your day, right? So then when you see someone else, it's hard for you to smile. Am I right? So it's a domino effect. Negativity generates nothing but negativity, right? Okay. That's why you should always surround yourself with positive people. People who bring you closer to achieving your goals. People who bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So if I'm with someone or I'm in a situation or I see people like Netanyahu or others or Saddam or others who have taken it upon themselves to be tyrants and dictators and to kill and maim and torture people, right? And I say, oh, it's not fair. We say, no, hang on. It's not that it's not fair. It's not that God is unfair. It's that individual made an unfair decision that affected others. The very system allows for good and bad decisions, right? Now, this bad decision this person made that caused these kids to die, these elders to die, these men, innocent men and women to die, right? When they died, will Allah reward them or not? When they are, think about, Allah is all fair. So if they're protecting their land and they die innocent, right? And they had nothing to do with the evil this person wanted to accomplish, right? Will Allah reward them or will Allah punish them? Allah, of course, will reward them, right? And not just that. According to the Quran, do not say that those who were killed in the way of Allah are dead, but rather they are alive, sustained with their Lord. So Allah doesn't only reward them, Allah says they're not dead. They're actually alive, right? And I sustain them. So Allah becomes their host. Allah takes care of them. Look at how fair Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. So was it the best thing for them to die this way for them? Yes, because they got the ultimate reward of care and sustenance from Allah, of being at that high level with Allah. But who is the one that will be punished and who will suffer ultimately after this is all said and done? The perpetrator himself. Yes, Netanyahu and others like him. You see? What about those who are injured senselessly? They lose an arm, they lose a leg, they're maimed, right? Right? What about them? Isn't that unfair? Isn't that senseless? No. It is unfair that that person made that decision. But was it senseless that this person has to live their life this way? No. Because now this person has a greater appreciation for life, and I have a greater appreciation for life, and now I stand for justice, and I wake up because I realize that, my biggest worry in life is what? Is, did I get to the gym on time or not? Right? Am I, my dad is pressuring me, he wants me to go to the mosque, and I'm just not feeling it today, right? While these kids, they don't have any food, they don't have any water, they lost their parents. Now, when I contemplate, do I have a greater appreciation for my own life and the blessings that I have or not? I do, right? Right, Nick? I do. So not only did they become a teacher to me through the calamity that they went through and through the struggle and how they survived. I was watching TEDx years ago, I still remember this guy. No arms, no legs. And he's a motivational speaker on TEDx. What is our excuse? Right? This child, who I remember in Turkey, was under the rubbles, okay? Right? On the phone, leaving a video message, saying, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. What was he saying? He was sending a message to everyone. He was saying, look, I accept what Allah has written for me. And this is a little child under the rubbles. When you see that little child, a Palestinian child, getting up, standing up, and saying, we will stand strong and we will rebuild no matter what, right? You say to yourself, what kind of problems do I have? Look at the strength God has given this child through this trial and tribulation. Imagine what this child will be able to do when they grow up, knowing that they went through such a calamity and they were able to survive. They lost their kid, their siblings, they lost their mom, they lost their dad, they lost their grandparents, and they're still alive and they have hope and drive to survive and to thrive in the future and to make a change, right? You see? So then this trial and tribulation that came even from a person's bad decision, right, is something that I can still handle because it's within this system that God gave me, right? Because God would not burden me with more than I can handle. Therefore, whatever I go through, whether it's from Allah or whether it's from human choice, whether it's from my own choices, bad choices, or from others' bad choices, then surely in this system, right, I will learn from it, I will become stronger, and I will seize the opportunity to show my gratitude to Allah through being patient and tolerant of what I go through, and by being resilient and remembering that this is an opportunity, right, to rise above the difficulties and the calamities, that these difficulties and calamities were custom made for me by Allah, so that He tests me and sees, will you still remember me and be thankful or no? It's another level of growth in my journey of progress towards pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. هذا والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين والفاتحة على أرواح المرحومين مسبوقة مشفوعة بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. محمد وآل محمد.